would ask then is the way that people practice a lot of unloving acts towards others, does that ultimately emanate out of the way they see themselves? If they, because maybe if they, you know, there's that saying that says that you, you know, before you can love somebody else, you have to love yourself. So the implication maybe is that if people really did, these people that perpetrate these acts upon one another, they really don't love themselves, and so they're just projecting that out upon others. Is that
exactly accurate?
Okay.
But the problem with that is karma.
I see.
I'm going to explain karma to you.
Okay.
Karma is the cause of law, a cause and effect.
Sure.
But karma is not imposed upon us from some exterior source.
Okay.
Karma is us giving ourselves what we think we deserve at any given moment.
I see.
Karma is not caused by what we do. It is caused by what we think and feel about what we do.
Okay.
When people are perpetrating these atrocities on each other,
right,
sometimes it's the culture that teaches them that it's acceptable to do this. And so they're not bringing any bad karma on themselves because they're not having any conscience or guilt or incrimination about it.
I see.
That's why evildoers can be rich and famous and healthy and strong. Okay. Because they're not getting any karma from it. The guy says, oh, ripped off that old lady for her Social Security. I'm going to go get another one. Okay. There's no bad karma coming because of the implications of approval of the self. But that is really a marginal thing because we are all good. No, I'm serious. We're all good. Inherently, everybody on the planet is doing the very best they can for everybody else.
The best they know how to do.
Exactly, the best they can.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
When we look at our parents and we incriminate them for the way they were with us, they did the best they could.
Sure.
If they could have done better, they would have.
Sure.
Okay. Imagine right now that everybody is having to do the introspection and look at their actions, look at what they're doing, and evaluate it based upon a global community, because that is what we have now. In the old days, if you cut off the snake's head, the snake dies, and so movements that arose were quelled very quickly. Now we have the internet. We have 100 million heads. Recently in China, there was a political demonstration that the forces of the government put down with great force, and many were killed and many were injured. And the Chinese government shut down media. They were out there with their cell phones, and within an hour it was all over the net.
Okay.
We have a new age. Astrology is an ancient science that monitors the electromagnetic spectrum of energy generated by the planets in our solar system and the stars in our galaxy. We're still doing flat Earth astrology. We still think that the Earth is the center. According to astrology, we still think that the Earth is the center of the universe. And we act upon it. And yet, how remarkably accurate is it? When you read your horoscope, that's bunk. I mean, sure. It's the most read part of any newspaper, and yet it is impossible to take a blanket for one sign and say, this is what's going to happen to everybody of that sign. Sure. It doesn't happen. But to say, this is the kind of energy that's going to manifest today. We're going to have, for instance, a tendency to want to tell too much truth, to want to blurt and blab, and be confrontational. Maybe the planets are activating our ego and our sense of self, and we want a confrontation. Understanding that that's the nature of how it's going, the energy that's going to manifest in a day, gives us a whole opportunity to use it.
I see. I see. Here's a practical question for you, because we're getting down towards the last third of our show here, and which brings me great sadness, by the way. However, to get practical, how can people take this knowledge that you have and use it to apply to real life as a living tool that they could then use to improve the quality of their own life and the life of the people around them? What would you recommend that they do, or how can they develop their own psychic senses more? How can they do these things that you're talking about?
There are two things that I will give you, impart very simple things.
Okay.
The next time you are emotional, Hold your hand like that, look at it, and say, why am I feeling like this? And take the very first impression that comes to your mind, the very first thing that happens there. Now that is far more difficult than it seems on the surface, because you have programs that are operating, and now you're going to operate the senses differently than the program operates them. Because the program does not take the first impression, it takes that impression and analyzes it and works it over and then brings back what your reason would bring. Taking that first impression is really difficult. So when you get a little bit and you say, why am I feeling like this? Well, he said that. You're in a situation where you're feeling emotional with another person. He said that. And then with a little practice, you can go to the next step, which is, he said that, but he implied this. Okay. And then, with a little more practice, you can get to the real deal. He said that, implied this, and what I am feeling is unloved, unwanted, inadequate, offended. Whatever the emotional reaction is, it's the real deal, is what you are experiencing, not what caused it.
I see.
Getting to that. And then you open your palm and you look at it and you say, and where did I learn this? Where did I learn that when these things happen, I should act like this? And you'll go back to somewhere between the ages of 3 and 10. By the time we're 10 years old, by astrology, we have our permanent personality pretty much in place. Yes, we'll modify it, but it's pretty much in place. As well as our habit patterns of survival, how we respond to the emotions. And we got that by watching the people around us. If you were raised in a dysfunctional household, it's not until you're an adult that you can really see how dysfunctional it was and make amends. What this exercise will do is help you get in touch with what you are feeling. And if you have never, as an adult, asked yourself why you are expressing such emotion, you'll be surprised at how often your parents are operating your life. Developing psychic senses is simple. No. Never confuse the word simple with the word easy. Because we got to come back to that taking the first impression. The right side of the brain gets the environmental input from the body. The body's processing the environment and feeding it to the right side of the brain minute by minute for the purposes of now, of dealing with our lives as they are at the moment. It feeds it to the left side for the past and the future. Is there anything in the memory banks that's associated with anything that's happening here? And if so, for a projection, what can happen because of that? Both of these are projections. To be able to take the first impression takes practice, and it is done with a struggle. Hold your eye open and don't blink. Don't blink. Don't blink. Go ahead and blink. No, we can hold our eye for 2 minutes here and do no damage to them whatsoever, and yet within 3 seconds you have encountered the program. You have given that program the power to decide when to blink because it performs a function. It keeps your eye moist, clean, keeps the light out when you want to sleep. Now, when you are going to thwart I love that word, thwart. Okay, we're going to thwart the program. It's not done without a struggle. When you begin to operate these programs differently than the system does, it is not done without a struggle, because you're going to have to confront the programs that are running. Doing that, one of the simple ways is to ask yourself questions that you can get an immediate answer to, that you can verify. Now, that requires that you accept that anytime you are asked a question from the outside or you ask it from the inside, that an answer appears. Okay, that's a truth. There's an answer. Our ability to perceive the answer is what is in question here, not whether the answer appears or not. So when you ask yourself a question, like tomorrow morning you're going to go to an office and you're going to encounter some coworkers. Pick 2 coworkers on your way to work and say, what color is he going to be wearing and what color is she going to be wearing predominantly? When you get there, check them out. Okay, if you thought that he was going to be wearing a green shirt and you get there and he's dressed in brown, when you go back in your mind to where you asked that question, you're going to find 2 things. Count them. 1, 2. First, that the correct answer was there, and that secondly, you overrode it to come up with your answer. That ability to take that first impression is the foundation of developing psychic senses. all of our intuition, all of our premonition, all of our inspiration depends upon our receptivity. When we are in that receptive mode, when we're looking for the impression. As an example, what kind of car do you drive?
Beige colored Malibu.
Good. Is that your first one?
My first vehicle?
Yeah.
I've had a few others.
No. Is this the first beige colored Malibu that you've ever driven?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you first began to drive it, did you notice any other beige Malibus out there? Yes, you did. Quite a few.
Yeah,
yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, they were always there. It wasn't until you had reason to pay attention to that one facet of your environment that you begin to notice how prolific it is. When you begin to notice how often these first impressions come, because most times we don't pay attention to it because we've never had that training. In the Hermetic teaching, the axiom is instruction is necessary and practice is required. Understanding that these impressions occur. Astrology and your natal astrology chart will tell you which of these impressions you're more receptive to, and in what areas of your life you would be more receptive to them in.
I see.
But taking that.
I'm sorry, I do not want to interrupt you because
no
this is everything you are saying is fascinating. However, we have come to basically the end of our show, to where I'm going to do my little song and dance now.
Okay.
However, I absolutely would love to have you come back again to our show. Would you like to do that?
Well, I'll be available anytime you want me to, George.
Okay, that's wonderful. And so now I'm going to address the speaking audience, but I absolutely appreciate your sharing this.
Thank you.
I think you can see why I invited this gentleman to be part of our show today. And the show is called Living Tools. It's produced under the forum of the San Diego Community Coalition, which the website for that will come on at the end of the show. You'll also see my phone number. And we also produce a number of other shows. And those include a show called Consider the Possibilities by Marilyn McLeod, where she looks at positive things happening in the community as opposed to the things that you see on CNBC and the nightly news. So that's a great show if you want to be inspired. We have a show called San Diego Southern California Showcase, which is hosted by Joe Stevens. He's a brilliant musician, and he brings on other musicians. So that's an excellent show as well. We have a show called Let's Talk About Love, which you heard Timothy this evening. That's not in production yet, but it will be soon. And last and absolutely not least, we have a show by Walter Davis called Progress in San Diego. That airs every Sunday at 5 o'clock, and we appreciate your hanging out with us tonight. We have a lot more shows, and we look forward to the next one. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All of this work, if I can call it that, I call it work-play. All of this work-play is really about allowing the inner splendor to escape, the evolution of our soul, becoming more and never less than our true self, releasing life energy, and allowing our unique talents and capacities within us to be activated, cultivated, and expressed so that we become a beneficial presence on this planet, that the world is better because we have arrived here and because we have given our gifts.